Am I in my pajamas filming at 8 o'clock at night? Yes, I am. But we listen and we don't judge because here we are going to literally ramble about all the 5 stars. So buckle up, guys. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to be chatting all about the 5 stars that I've ever given since I started reading. Now, I was going through this list and I thought, I can't believe how many I've given. And you can probably see by the Mahusif powers at the back, but this is not all, guys, because I did actually, funnily enough, declutter a lot of 5 star books. I felt that I was just never, they were 5 stars, but I was just never going to reread them again. So we're going to rapid fire as quick as we can. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know what you've rated them. Let me know what your thoughts and feelings were. And I feel like we're just going to get into the video. So firstly, I feel like we are just going to go through, I don't know what pile to go through. I feel like we're just going to go with dark romance first. I think this is only fair. It's probably one of the short piles. But we are going to start off strong. And we've got Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. It was a 5 star. And I think I wasn't expecting this to be a 5 star. And it very much quickly turned out to be a 5 star. I ended up being absolutely obsessed with the series, guys. I'm not going to lie. I was very much obsessed. And if you haven't read this series, I solely recommend doing it. And then we have the first book in the Beauty of Lies series, and this is called Until Tomorrow Comes, and this is by Adeline Forrest, and this is a 4-book series, and I really enjoyed the first one. I was absolutely obsessed, and it was again one of the many first dark romance kind of mafia ones that I did read. So if you haven't read this, I recommend that you go check the whole of this series out. We then have the Ryan kind of rule series. Basically, it's the New York Ruthless series by Sadie Kincaid, and all 5 of these were 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was kind of like a why chooses. Like, I think it was so good. And again, it was a mafia book, and I read this when I first got back into reading, and I was obsessed, guys. We then have the Cruel Obsession and Deadly Obsession by J.L. Beck and C. Hallman. And these two were both 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed them. They were really two very short, quick, easy to read dark romances. And I definitely think I could reread them again because I was obsessed, guys. And I definitely recommend checking these out. They're probably on Kindle Unlimited. These are the they are the indie editions. I don't know whether these got traditionally published or they stayed as indie, I'm not too sure, but I love these books so much. I thoroughly enjoyed them. We then are going to start with romance, guys. So we have, I didn't know where to put this one, so I've just kind of put it in the romance book pile, but we have One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I absolutely loved this book and I sobbed so hard, I can't even tell you guys, but I really liked the premise of the story, and I just think it was super cute, and I really liked it, and heartbreaking. And if you haven't ever read Taylor Jenkins Reid, I really recommend reading this one because I thoroughly enjoyed this one. We then have Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. This book broke my soul in places I didn't think I was broken. I loved this story so much, and again, guys, if you haven't read this, I highly recommend. We then have The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. Again, I would say it was probably one of those that took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, and I've never watched the movie, but the book was stunning. I think it was just like the right book at the right time that maybe made me give this a 5 star. I think if I probably reread it again, I don't know whether I would give it a 5 star, but I thoroughly enjoyed this one. We then have Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score, and this was the only book in a series that I ever gave her 5 star. All of the others that I have given quite high have always been standalones, so you're probably very surprised to see this, but I was obsessed with this book, and I think it was just the small town romance vibes that I was obsessed with, guys, so I really enjoyed that. And then we also have By a Thread by Lucy Score, and this was the first standalone book that I had ever given 5 stars to by Lucy Score because it was one of the first ones I ever really read. And I was obsessed, and I cannot wait to do my reread and have it all pretty in tabs. And I just love a Grumpy Ex Sunshine workplace romance. It was stunning. We then have The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This was the first Ashley Poston book that I ever read, guys. And when I tell you, she did not disappoint. I haven't read as many as I would like from Ashley Poston. I think I've only read this one and The 7 Years Slip. So I do have a few that I do need to catch up on. But this was a 5 star, was my first ever book that I read from her. And I can tell you, I think I put reading this book off for so long, and I'm really sad that I did because I enjoyed every minute of this book. We then have Lauren Asher, Terms and Conditions, and this was the second book in the Dreamland Billionaire series by her, and Declan and Iris was one of my favorite couples. I thoroughly enjoyed, and I just loved this book so much, guys. I cannot tell you how much that I want to reread this, and they were just so cute. We then have Mr. Wrong Number by Lynn Painter. And again, I feel like this was a right time book that I read it. I don't know whether I would give Lynn Painter 5 stars now. I feel like I haven't read one of her books in such a long time. But this was just a cutesy, quick reading rom-com. And it was the perfect time for when I read it. And I was really in my rom-com era when I read this. And I was really obsessed. And I totally love a rom-com sometimes because I read such heavy fantasy. Sometimes I do just need to switch off, and I think I just read this at the perfect time. We then have the second book in the Magnolia Park series, which is Daisy Hates. Now, I'm a Daisy stan. Magnolia used to do my head in, but I am a proper Magnolia stan, and I did annotate this, and I was just obsessed with Daisy's books. I don't know why. I just had an obsession, especially with this one. And I loved every moment of this book, and I think it was just really good. I enjoyed it, and I really do enjoy Jessica Hastings' writing, so I wasn't surprised. We then have, by no surprise, we have Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh, the one book that started my Boys of Tobin journey. And were we surprised that I ended up rating this a 5 star when I did? No. Do I still think it's a 5 star? Yes. Would I have ever read it again and thought, yes, this was a 5 star? Absolutely, because this series is my whole true pride and joy. We then have Redeemed by Lauren Asher, which is the fourth book in the Dirty Air series. It's like a Formula One sports romance. And I didn't give any of the others 5 stars, but I gave this one a 5 star because I thoroughly enjoyed the storyline and the plot. And I think the representation of how this story was done was phenomenal, guys. I can't even tell you how much I genuinely enjoyed this book. I just think this book was amazing. It was 10/10, 5 stars, and I'm just really glad that I read the book when I did, because I definitely think I could relate to the characters, especially Chloe, I could relate to her and her person. I then have The Spanish Love Deception by Elaine Almaz. I don't know if I would rate this a 5 star had I read this now, but when I did read it, I was solely new getting into romance and reading, and I really enjoyed this book. He was a bit of me, I'm not gonna lie. Aaron Blackford was definitely a bit of me in the days, but I don't know whether my opinion would change. We then have two Ali Hazelwood books, being The Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain. And guys, I was obsessed with both of these books. I don't think I've ever binged 2 books as well as I did. I was just obsessed. They were both a part of the STEM romance, and I just really liked how they were written. They were beautiful, they were wonderful, and I think they were just everything I needed it to be at the time. We then have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune, which was a little bit like Love and Other Words by Lauren Asher. And I did read Every Summer After before I read Love and Other Words, and I thoroughly enjoyed this book, guys. I was obsessed, and it was just super cute. Again, I love this whole book with my whole heart, I'm not gonna lie. And I think I would still rate it 5 stars now. We then have Good Girl Complex by Elle Kennedy. Again, I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and if any of you have watched, this is going to go right off on a tangent, but if any of you guys have watched the Off Campus series, let me know your thoughts, because I was obsessed. But this was such a cute book. I just felt that I just really connected with the character with regards to being a people pleaser and wanting to follow every rule. And I think that was something that I was like as a child. I wanted to please everybody, and I think I really resonated with the character the most when it came to that. We then have Twisted Games by Anna Huang. Now, I read this very early into my kind of reading BookTok books, and I'm not going to lie, Reese Larson did not disappoint me when I read this book, and I thoroughly enjoyed this book. This was the only book that I actually gave 5 stars out of the whole series, and I still think about this book to the day. We then have Play Along by Liz Tomfordy, and would it be a video of mine if I wasn't talking about Liz Tomfordy, because I'm obsessed with her. She is a legend when it comes to writing, and Kennedy and Isaiah were just everything for me. I really loved the whole book. I just loved the plot. I love the characters. I love this series in general. And if you haven't read the Windy City series, I genuinely recommend picking it up. We then have Close Protection by Eden Victoria. Now, this was a very, very big shock to me. And again, I don't know whether it was one of those right times, like right book, right time, because I ate this up so much. I ate this up so much. And I did lovely annotate it. I don't know whether you guys can see, I don't know. But I did annotate this book and I was definitely obsessed. And I think I do need a reread soon. I'm not going to lie. We then have Hopeless by Elsie Stover. It was a 5-star read for me. I think it was a really good way to round off all the characters and round off the kind of series, to be fair. And Bo Eaton for me had always been one that I was kind of a little bit like, ooh, you've got a bit about you. I need to know more, especially after we had Heartless, because I always had kind of a person, I normally have just one person out of the whole entire series that I wanted to know their backstory for, but it was mostly Cade and Bo Eaton that I definitely had that for, and I was obsessed with this book. I think it just touched upon so many things that I don't think anyone usually talks about, and I do just love the magic of convenience, I'm not gonna lie, guys. We then have the last 2 books in the romance pile, which I'm probably not going to be shocked by, but is The Funny Story by Emily Henry, and we also have Happy Place by Emily Henry, which were both 5 stars for me. Happy Place was my first, Funny Story was my second, and I just love these books, and I think they just represent such good things in this book. I love the characters and I loved the storyline. Well, I'm just going to make sure that I didn't miss any. We then have Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Again, I very much started with Colleen Hoover in my early days of reading, and I did give Ugly Love a 5-star. I think now I think back to it, I don't know if I would still give it a 5-star, but I definitely enjoyed it. We then have Confess and Number 9, also by Colleen Hoover. And again, I definitely, at the time of when I started it, I think I gave pretty much every book I had a feel for 5 stars. Now, I know that that has completely changed through a while. We then have the Mind F series, and guys, I'm obsessed with that series, and I definitely think a reread is very due very shortly. We then have Without Merit, also by Colleen Hoover, and I was obsessed with that book, guys. I'm not gonna lie, I was obsessed. We then have Reminders of Him, also by Colleen Hoover, and again, I gave that one a 5-star a long time ago. We then have It Happened One Summer and Hook, Line, Sink by Tessa Bailey. In my very early reading stages, I was obsessed with Tessa Bailey. I think now I am not that obsessed with Tessa Bailey anymore. I don't think I've really enjoyed a book from her in such a long time. We then have, let me just have a look. We also have The Ritual by Chantal Tessier, which was a 5-star for me, guys. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think it was the first kind of proper dark romance that I generally got sucked into very quickly on my Kindle. I pretty much enjoyed that. We also have Dante by Sadie Kincaid. I absolutely loved that whole series was so good. And we also have Keres by Sadie Kincaid as well, which was a 5-star. So I think that is all of the ones for romance. We are then going to go on to mystery thriller, and I'm not going to lie, guys, very big stat. So we're now going on to kind of a mystery thriller realm, and the 5-star I have given is Holly Jackson, 5 Survive. And I literally read this in one sitting and was absolutely obsessed and got my mum to read this. So she then fell in love with Holly Jackson's writing. And I was just obsessed with this whole series. I'm not going to lie, guys. The whole plot of this book. And I think I really liked that they kept you on edge the whole time. We then have All In by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, which is the 3rd book in the Natural series. The 3rd book in the Natural series. And I just love this series with my whole heart, and I genuinely think it gives me Criminal Minds. And when I was a little bit younger, I was obsessed with Criminal Minds, and I always wanted to find books that reminded me of Criminal Minds, and this was certainly one of them. We then have As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson, which is more of her YA kind of mystery. And this is the third book in the Good Vibes Guide to Murder series. And I really enjoyed this book, guys. I was scared that I wasn't going to enjoy it as much as I had the other ones. And this was above and beyond, guys. If you haven't read this series, I genuinely recommend. We then have Finlay Donovan is Killing It and Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead, which is the first two books in the Finlay Donovan series. I did only get up to Finlay Donovan Rolls the Dice, and I think there's been a few more since then. So I definitely need to catch up with the series because it was kind of a cute little mystery kind of book, and I really liked Vera and Finlay. I found that they were so funny. We then have Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell, and Lisa Jewell became very quickly one of my favourite authors. However, this one has always been the one that's kind of stuck with me, and I definitely recommend reading this. Although it was a little bit more disturbed than I like, I definitely, again, read it all in one sitting and was obsessed. We then have Verity by Colleen Hoover, and Verity was maybe one of the first ever kind of mystery, the thriller side of things, and it was so good that I definitely think this is also due a reread very, very soon. We then have The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose, and when I tell you, I sat, read it, done it in a whole one sitting. That was so true, guys. I very much really enjoyed the series. I did only rate the first one 5 stars, but the other one I think I rated a 4-star. But I thoroughly enjoyed this one. We then have One by One by Freida McFadden, and I believe this was one of the first ever Freida McFadden books that I ever read and kind of started my journey. And I was very much obsessed with Freida McFadden for when I first got into thrillers, and I do recommend a lot of her thrillers. I think the last few that she's kind of come out with, I haven't been that great with, other than Dear Debbie. We then have a series by Lisa Jewell, which was The Family Upstairs and The Family Remains. Both of these were 5 stars. Both of these have me on the edge of my seat, and both of these are definitely worth the read. If you are looking to get into mystery kind of thrillers aspect, these two are definitely a good way to go, but they are very, very disturbed. And then I'm just going to see if we've got any other thrillers on here. We also have A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham, which I will pop a picture up of. That was a 5-star, shook me to my core, and again, I read that very, very quickly. We then have Behind Closed Doors as well, which I will also pop a picture up for. And that whole book was amazing. My mum recommended me the last 2 books I've just mentioned, and she did not disappoint. She did not disappoint with the recommendations, guys. She certainly did not disappoint. I think, yeah, that was it for thrillers. We then have historical fiction, and I've only ever given 2 5-stars, and it is to the same author, funnily enough, and that is The Woman and the Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. I sat and read these all in one sitting. My heart broke to a million pieces, but I was obsessed, guys. I loved every single one of these books that I read. I wasn't the biggest fan of Homefront, but I would say these two are my favourite as of what I've read of Kristin Hannah. And I'm very excited to kind of start her backlist a little bit more and kind of read, because I know a lot of people have read most of her books. We then have the last pile, guys, and it is fantasy and it is huge. So we're going to go. The first book we have is The Serpent Wings of the Night by Clarissa Broadbent. I absolutely love this story, and I definitely think my Clarissa Broadbent journey started very strongly with The Serpent, the Wings of the Night, because I was obsessed with everything she wrote, and I read this incredibly quickly, and I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. And the covers are just stunning, I do have to admit. I do prefer the hardcover kind of ones to these ones, but this just gives me more of a vibe, and I'm obsessed. We then have the first and the third book in the Cruel Prince trilogy, Folk of the Air. So we have The Cruel Prince by Holly Black, and we have The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black as well. They're from the same person. And guys, I'm not going to lie, this was one of the first ever fantasy series I got into, and it did not disappoint. Jude and Carden were everything, and I absolutely was obsessed. So if you have been living under a rock and you haven't read The Cruel Prince trilogy, I certainly recommend. We then have Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. This was the only ever book that out of Cassandra Clare that I gave a 5-star, because I'm sorry, this moved heaven and earth for me. I sobbed in ways I didn't think I could sob. My heart broke within a million pieces, and I enjoyed every minute of this book. And if you haven't read this series, you really need to. I do recommend you ever picking up the Shatter Me series. I do recommend you do that. We then have Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas, guys, and she's a chunker, but this was everything for me, and I was obsessed with this whole entire series once I got to Crown of Midnight. I think I read these at least one a month, and I was obsessed. I definitely recommend this whole entire series if you haven't already. I was absolutely sold by it. We then have the 3 books in the ACOTAR series. So we have A Court of Mist and Fury, which is by Sarah J. Maas, and this is the ACOTAR series. And guys, who could blame me? Look at my annotated copy. I am so glad to be doing a reread, and I think my book is just well and truly broken. We then have A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas as well, and I am definitely due a reread. I need to get my annotation supplies, and I need to sit and I need to binge, because I don't know if I updated you guys about this, but my partner is reading this on audiobook and he's already ahead of me, so I need to speed my life up. And then I was very surprised that I ended up rating this a full 5-star, but A Court of Silver Flames was also a 5-star, and I was obsessed with this whole entire series. So I definitely recommend reading it if you haven't. We then have Powerless and Fearless by Lauren Roberts, and this series became my whole entire life very quickly, and I'm so sad that it has come to an end. But I was obsessed with these 2 books especially, and they were both very quick and very much became 5-star reads for me. We then have Fourth Ring by Rebecca Yarros, the only book at this whole entire series that I have given a 5-star, and I was obsessed, guys. This became my whole life and soul until I read Iron Flame, and I'm still not sure whether I'm going to continue reading this series. I feel like I may need to do a reread and see if I still want to continue, but that was also a 5-star. We then have Quicksilver by Callie Hart, and I was obsessed with this story. My friend Cassie read this and she got me to read this, and I was obsessed, guys. I was obsessed, and I'm not gonna lie, Kingfisher became my whole entire life for a very long time. We then have a recent 5-star, which was Starside by Alex Aster, and guys, this book had me screaming. It had me screaming, guys. And if you don't know this book, get to know as quick as possible, because this book I was obsessed with. We then have The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber, and I lived for this book. I lived for this book. This book was everything for me. This whole entire series was everything, but this second book was amazing. I think it was one of the best books Stephanie Garber, had ever written. We then have Rebecca Ross, Divine Rivals, and we also have Wild Revenants, and they are both very gorgeously annotated, and I love these books so much, guys. They have become my whole entire life. This whole series has been repicked up as a reread. That obviously came out not that long ago, so I read that, but this has definitely become a reread of my year so far, and I am just obsessed with every single one of those books. And then I'm just going to make sure that I haven't missed any. No, I'm pretty sure that is it. Let me just... Oh, we also have Daggermouth by H.M. Wolfe. I don't know how I forgot about this, because I literally raved about this whole entire book, and the fact that I had to wait literally months and maybe up until next year to read this book. But Daggermouth was also a 5-star read for me, and I loved that book through and through. And I wish I could feel all the feels that I had the first time I read this book. But if I have missed any, you'll be able to check my Goodreads out. It's always linked on my TikTok, and it's always linked in my bio as well. So make sure to go check that out, guys. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.